As I was putting together my engine, I had made a whole series of videos when I installed the top end of the engine. I've already posted a bunch of videos from the bottom end, but I had also made videos from the top end installing the cylinder heads, installing the intake manifold, adjusting the valves, and so forth. And I honestly don't know what happened to the flash drive that all of those were recorded on, so I'm not sure where those videos went. Um, can't recreate a bunch of them because the engine is together. Spoiler alert, what you're watching on my page is not happening in real time. Um, and so while I'm trying to figure out what to do for other videos, I decided it's probably time to introduce you to my engine run stand. It's homemade completely, and I built it because my car is not ready for the engine to go into. I'm leaning on the car right now. The whole front end is off of it. The fenders, the hood, the bumpers, everything. From the firewall forward, it's just metal. There's no wires, there's no brake lines, there's no. I've completely stripped it. And I'm working on some rust repairs and then once all that's complete, then I'll start systematically putting everything together. Everything's going in new anyway. And so it's going to take a while to get to the point to where the car is ready to receive the engine. But I didn't want to wait all of that time to run the engine and do the break-in and sort of sort out the bugs. I also really, really wanted to hear it. And so I decided to build an engine run stand. I had taken my engine off of the assembly stand, which is it's a three-wheeled stand. I should probably replace that with a four-wheeled stand because it's dangerous. But I took it off the three-wheeled stand and I put it on a stand that mounts to the engine mounts on the engine and puts it down on the floor with four wheels. Had it made by a guy named Kurt Stumpf. He goes by Stumpy. His website or his business name is Stumpy's Fab Works. I'll put a link to his website in the description. If you're in the market for a really good way to move your engine around or store it, Stumpy's the guy. Also, if you're in the Mustang 2 world, he makes a fantastic set of subframe connectors and some sort of like traction bars for the back of these cars. So I already had the engine on that stand and I decided to build off of it. Now, I have a pretty small garage, and so I wanted the stand to be able to be taken apart. So I could have welded it all together, but then I'd have, when I'm done, I'd have this big thing that I'd have to figure out what to do with. The engine stand itself is in two pieces, and when it's off, it actually fits on the floor under my toolbox. So I thought about it and said, you know, if I could build off of that and make it so that it can be disassembled, then I'd be able, when I'm done, just to take it apart and stuff the whole thing somewhere, under something or behind something or in a corner somewhere. Maybe one day if I have a bigger garage, I can work on something more permanent. But for now, I just wanted it to be able to get the job done of being able to run the engine, and I wanted to be able to take it apart when I was done. And so instead of welding, I put it together with riv nuts. If you're not familiar with riv nuts, I have one here. Put it up close. So this is a barrel-shaped thing that's got the threads of a nut on the inside, and then you can see sort of a grooved area on the shaft. The way this works is you drill a hole. This is a riv nut right in front of me. So you would drill a hole, and you'd put this thing through the hole. It's got a tool that goes through the middle of it, through the threaded portion, and then you pull it just like you would a rivet. And the knurled area here actually crushes. And it may be a little hard to tell, but on this one right here, you can hopefully make out a rolled lip right where it meets the edge there. And that rolled lip is sort of the crushed part. And so it pinches in just like a rivet, but it's threaded like a nut. So that's a riv nut. You can get a riv nut tool relatively inexpensively on Amazon or a number of other sources. So it was a good way for me to put this together. So here is the stand that I'm talking about. So it mounts right here with 2 bolts to the bosses on the block where the engine mount that attaches it to the car will go. And then it's got a single piece that comes down here with a support bracket off it, and then a horizontal support with a wheel here and a wheel there. And so there's one on either side, and you can remove both of those when you are ready to install the engine. And like I said, this thing will lie flat on the floor and roll under my toolbox. So I decided to build off of that. So these bolts right here are where I attached an extension piece that comes out front here, and then there's one that goes across there, one that goes across in the front, and one here. So the overall stand itself has a support brace in the front, comes up on either side, goes across the top, and then goes down the bottom. I mounted an instrument panel to it, and well, there's more than just instruments on there, and then radiator and battery down in the front. I added some extra wheels. There's a wheel in each corner, and then one in the front here under the battery to support that. So most of the stuff I used is the stuff that'll go in the car. So for instance, these are the valve covers that'll go in the car. I love these Moroso hold downs. I've been using these on my engines for at least 30 years. Love them. These are the headers that are going in the car. These are Hooker Super Comp headers. They are ceramic coated. You can tell from the color of the ID tag that this has been run. They've already they change color a little bit. They're shinier when you first get them. They dull just a little bit under heat. The tag itself is stainless and it's not coated, so that's why it's a different color. But in a earlier video, I ran a mechanical fuel pump, but you'll notice it's missing now, and I've put a cover plate there. I switched to an electric pump because the mechanical pump was actually putting out too much pressure for my carburetor. Got an Edelbrock carburetor on it, and they can really only handle up to about 5.5 psi, and my Carter pump was putting out 7. And so I guess I could have just put a regulator on it, but I had a few other issues with that pump, so I just replaced it. And so I guess I'll just start in this side and go around. So here is my electric fuel pump and a pressure regulator that feeds the carburetor. Here is my power steering pump. You should never run a power steering pump dry, and so on the stand I mounted a reservoir so that it can supply fluid to the power steering pump and keep it lubricated as the engine runs. I used the actual radiator from my car. It was kind of in the way in the garage, and this was a convenient place to put it, so I just mounted that radiator with an electric fan on it right on the front here, and then an overflow tank as well. On my panel here, I've got a battery master switch here. Hang on, I'm tripping myself. Stand by. So it's just the standard cutoff type switch, but that's how you turn it on and off. I've got a toggle switch here for the fan. This is for the ignition. This one here is for the fuel pump, and then this is the starter button. Now, even though the battery's on, nothing's happening because the battery positive cable is actually disconnected right now. Over On the left side of the panel, I've got my tachometer. This is one that I ran in my car for many, many years. It's not going in this particular car, but it's a great tach. So this was a no-brainer just sticking that on here so I'd have a really big visual indicator of the RPM. I've got a voltmeter, water temperature, and oil pressure gauges. I've got my MSD blaster coil here. I've got an MSD 6AL box over here. Don't need the rev limiter, but I just happened to have that lying around, so decided to go ahead and use that. I've got my starter solenoid mounted here. Standard Ford fender mounted solenoid. That's what goes in the car, so that's what I used on here. And then I just made a couple distribution panels for power and ground routing. As I mentioned, the battery does have quick disconnects on the positive and the negative. If you've never run one of these Optima yellow tops, they are just fantastic. Extremely reliable and powerful. Very happy with that battery. Moving around to this side, I've got my air conditioner compressor mounted. It's part of the Serpentine kit, so obviously it has to be here. But since it's not in the car, I've just put a cap on the top where the lines come out. And of course the wire for the clutch is not connected to anything. So as long as the clutch doesn't engage, then it's just the pulley spinning and not the pump itself. I did on this side of the engine, I realized if you watched my earlier video on the Serpentine system itself, I ran a couple things that aren't standard for this particular year 289. The timing pointer goes on the other side of the engine. On this engine originally, it would have had an outlet on this side for the water pump. But I went with the water pump outlet on that side because that matches up for the car and the radiator. But it sort of obstructs my timing pointer a little bit. Now I can see it, and I've used it in tuning the engine, and it works fine, but it dawned on me that I've got all the space in the world on this side of the engine. So let me grab a flashlight and illuminate this a little bit better. And so I just installed a second timing pointer on this side. And I just picked an arbitrary number. When I set the engine at 0 on the correct pointer on the other side of the engine, and that pointer I had set when I built the engine. I used a dial indicator to find true top dead center when the heads were off, and I calibrated that timing mark at that point. And so with that one set at 0, which I know for a fact is top dead center, then I just installed a secondary pointer here, and I just picked a number that was convenient. In this case, it was 259. Because I had it at 260, but I noticed when it was running, the half of the 260 was obstructed, and it made it a little challenging to see. So I adjusted it to 259, and now I know if I can clearly see the 260, it's the line right below it. I don't know. It works for me. It sounds a little goofy when I say it out loud, but it worked very well for me. So now I've got a second timing pointer that's even easier to see than the first one. Something that's unique to the headers, the Hooker Super Comps, and the reason I chose them, on the Mustang 2 in particular, the right side header is always a really big challenge. I ran some Hooker headers in the past, the regular Hookers, not the Super Comps, and I had a lot of trouble fitting them in the car. Once they're in the car and once they're installed, it's fine. It's getting it into position. you guys that are running Fox body Mustangs, you could put a person through the space between the engine and the frame on either side of the car. There's so much room in there, but to a point, although the strut towers are there, the early first generation Mustangs also have quite a bit of room. But in the Mustang 2, there's no room on this side. And once the header's in place, then it's okay. But getting it into place is the problem. And so one of the companies that was really, really popular, Hedman Headers, made a set of headers. I think they call them Blackjacks. But they solved the problem by taking the number one cylinder pipe and going straight down under the motor mount and then back. And it goes down so far, it actually goes under the cross. The cross member sits right here where the power steering rack is. And so the header went down and under the cross member in the back. And then it was removable. So it slid into the pipe there. So you could take that thing off, put the header on, and then put that one on. But not only does it look goofy and give you the potential for hitting it with things under the car, but that one pipe ends up being almost twice as long as all the other pipes. And if you're going to go with headers, you might not always be able to go with true equal length headers, but the closer you can get to equal length, the better off you'll be. So Hooker solved that problem by also making the number one pipe removable and the number two pipe removable. So they weld them all up in a jig, and then, if you can see right where my finger is, they cut the flange here, and then they cut the flange here. So number one pipe is cut off the flange, and number two is cut off. And then what they do down here is they expanded the pipe here, and these head pipes are made longer. And so you put the header on with just the 3 and 4 cylinder pipes attached, and then from the front you slide the number 2 in and then bolt it in place, and then you slide the number 1 in and bolt it in place. And it works very, very well. I'll probably put a little bit of exhaust putty on here, but I've checked them out while it's running. They don't leak. Over time, maybe it will. That's why I'll put some putty on it. But it's a really great solution to being able to get the headers in the car. And again, once they're in, it's not a problem. They fit. It's close, but they fit well. It's getting them in the car that's the problem. You guys that are able to put your headers on while it's on the stand and then put the whole thing in the car with the headers on it, I gotta say I'm a bit jealous. No way you can do that here. You put the engine in and then the header's going in from the bottom. The driver's side is not too much of a problem. It'll go in there pretty easily as long as the transmission, you work around the transmission a bit. But on this side, it can be a real challenge, especially trying to do a whole assembled header like my original Hookers. So the Hooker Super Comp that's made specifically for the Mustang 2 is the only one that's like this. If you buy Super Comps, just generic Super Comps for a 302 in pretty much any other car, you won't get this. They make this specifically for the Mustang 2. And it allows you to use a header that has close to equal length tubing. It's not perfect, but much closer than if you had the blackjack pipe that went way down and under. And it tucks them through where the exhaust is expected to go in the car. And so I do not have the transmission mounted yet. I probably will. Haven't decided yet. Don't really need it on there, but I may put it on there just so it'll be attached and I can put it in the car that way together. And then for exhaust, I just went online and bought a cheap set of glass packs. They're stainless steel. I guess they didn't need to be, but they're just a standard pair of glass packs, and they keep the noise down a little bit. It's still really loud when I run it. Of course, I like it that way. But that's just an overview on my run stand and a few other things. Oh, one other thing is the fuel supply. So I needed to supply fuel to it, obviously, and so what I did was I got a fuel tank for a boat. This is for feeding an outboard motor. Some of you who are into fishing may recognize the standard outboard motor fuel fitting. It's a quick disconnect. And so I just made a hose. I put a primer ball on it to help me prime the carburetor when it's empty. Put a fuel filter on it as well. And then there's a corresponding fitting attached to the fuel pump as well. And so that gives me a leak-free fuel connection, but it's also one that I can disconnect easily, and I can store that gas tank elsewhere when I need to. And if I need to manually prime it, I've got a squeeze ball there that allows me to do it. So that's my run stand. I will attach, I guess, a short video clip at the end of this to show the engine running and let you hear what it sounds like. Overall, I am really glad that I did it this way, the way that I did it. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I'm really happy with the way everything works, and that I've been able to start the engine, break it in, tune it up, and get it going, so that when I do put it in the car, I won't have to worry about the engine. I'm going to have enough problems when it comes to the car side itself. Everything is going to be new. It's a new wiring harness, all new brake lines, every single one of them. New brakes, Willwood brakes, all four corners, Hydro Boost braking system, new instrument panel. So everything on the car side is going to be new going in. So I wanted to sort of eliminate the engine problems that could arise if I could. The only thing that I'm not doing before I put the engine in the car is my fuel injection system. I have a very special fuel injection system that's going on this car. I'm not going to talk about it yet. I want to save that for the future when I put it on. But I'll get the engine in the car. I'll sort out the bugs for the car. I'll get everything running there before I step into the fuel injection system, because that's going to change a lot of things. So I just want to get the car running and sorted out before I go down that road with the fuel injection. So I guess that's it for now. I'm just going to add right on the end here a very short video of the engine running on the stand so you can hear what it sounds like.